Hello, friends, and welcome to the PrepWell podcast. I'm your host, Phil Black. And if you have an 8th, 9th, or 10th grader with big aspirations, like the Ivy League, or military service academies like West Point, ROTC, or athletic scholarships, boom, you've come to the right place. My specialty, my superpower, if you will, is preparing families for these competitive programs. I'll teach you what your child should do, when they should do it, and how you can help. So stick around and prepare to out-prepare. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the PrepWell podcast. In today's episode, I hope to explain why this year may be the toughest admissions year in decades for both students and colleges. And I want to make sure that all of you students out there who will be receiving their admit, their deny, their waitlist decisions in the coming weeks, or maybe they have already, I want to make sure that you're prepared because it could get ugly. So let's brace ourselves for impact. Why so competitive this year? In my opinion, the primary reason is because students applied to a lot more colleges than usual this year. Statistics from the Common Application show that applications were up over 500,000 from last year. 500,000 more applications this year versus last year. And most of this increase didn't come from more students applying to college, but rather more applications per student. In my opinion, this jump is mostly because SAT and ACT scores were not required because of the pandemic. These test optional policies opened the floodgates for students with strong extracurriculars and GPAs, but who couldn't take the SAT, who didn't want to bother taking the SAT, or who took the SAT but did not do well, so they applied without submitting their score. This describes a lot of students. A lot of students have 4.3 GPAs. A lot of students take multiple AP classes. A lot of students were presidents of their student body. A lot of students were all-conference athletes and thespian stars. They're a dime a dozen. But students saw this opening as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get a shot at the Stanfords, the Yales, the Harvards of the world, because without an SAT score, they look pretty similar to tens of thousands of other students. Maybe they'll get lucky. Maybe they'll win the lottery. What do they have to lose? Well, we're about to find out. Because obviously, with applications up by the tens of thousands at some schools, so much so that they had to delay their decision dates, the percentage of students getting admitted will go down because most schools are not adding more students to their campuses from last year. In fact, in many cases, they're shrinking the number of students because of all the gap year students who are boomeranging back. So if they have the same number of openings and 25,000 more applications, the admit rate goes down. And lo and behold, they become even more selective than in the past. For instance, this year, MIT's acceptance rate went down from 7% to 4%. Are you kidding me? 4%? I predict Stanford might come in somewhere just north of 2%. You heard it here first. A little over 2%. In my experience this year, many students applied to 15, 16, sometimes 18 or more schools versus the 8 to 10 schools in years past. And even though this strategy works against them when everyone else does the same thing, I can't really blame them. Because without a requirement for the SAT and ACT scores, you can't really rely on any historical precedent to figure out where you may be competitive. It's the wild, wild west. Who knows how admissions officers will deal with applications with no standardized test scores? You have to be in the game. Will they really be able to separate students like they had in the past? Who knows? And if not, then how should students decide where to apply if the traditional metrics are irrelevant? So people apply to a lot of places. And as much as colleges love getting more and more applications because it means that their admit rate goes down, which makes them look more prestigious and selective, they don't like what this may do to their yield. The yield is the number of students who actually accept an offer of admission. And colleges track this metric very carefully because it has wild implications for rankings. they want a high yield, meaning that most people who get offered a spot actually end up attending. As a point of reference, Harvard historically has a pretty high yield of above 80%. But this year, colleges have no idea what type of yield they will get because so many students applied to so many colleges that they have no idea what students' intentions actually are, at least not as much as they used to. This is one of the reasons that many predict that this year's wait lists will be huge. There could be wait lists with thousands and thousands and thousands of students because colleges don't know how many students will accept their offers and how many won't. And they need some bodies on the bench who are still willing to go even deep into the summer months. So what's a student to do? Well, first off, obviously, if you get accepted, you should be excited, you should be happy, you should be proud. This year, more than any other year. And you should probably feel a little lucky too. And understand, with this acceptance, you are now in the driver's seat. For schools that want to protect their precious yield, they have a lot of incentive to make you happy. Because once they accept you, they really want you to attend. Even at the most selective colleges, where they have thousands and thousands of students waiting, chomping at the bit to take your spot in a moment's notice, they really want you. So use this leverage to ask questions. How are they dealing with COVID? Will they have in-person learning? How about a revised financial aid package? Use that ticket wisely. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, what if you get rejected? Well, don't take it personally, especially this year. Even if you were a highly qualified candidate at a particular school, keep in mind, all bets were off this year. It's not a reflection of you or your application, but rather an odd time in the history of college admissions. So do your best to move on. I'm sure you'll have plenty of choices in the end, even though they may not have been your number one option. And lastly, if you're waitlisted, which will probably happen a lot, being waitlisted is better than an outright rejection, but maybe not by that much. Because remember, many colleges will have to swell their wait lists like never before because their historical yield rates could be off by a lot and they can't afford to come up short. They have to make sure that they have enough students to fill out their class. And they also can't risk accepting too many students where they don't have the beds for them. So they have to hedge their bets by waitlisting thousands and thousands of highly qualified students. And if you look to see how many people got off their waitlist last year, that number will likely be irrelevant this year. I wouldn't even bother. So what do you do if and when you're waitlisted? Well, if you're really pissed off that you were waitlisted and you've soured on the school, then don't accept a spot on the waitlist and move on. Done. If you would still like to give the school a chance, despite the thousands of other kids who might be on that waitlist right with you, then make a deposit to another school and then wait it out. Sit tight and wait out the waitlist. Or if you're really motivated, send a letter of continued interest, letting the school know that you will attend if offered a spot off the waitlist. Make sure you're telling the truth here. Don't just do that for fun, because they're going to call you up and they're going to put you on the spot. Hey, we're thinking about taking you off the waitlist. Are you coming? You have to have an answer for them. In fact, if you don't send them a letter like this, a letter of continued interest, there's a good chance they'll pass you up on the waitlist. So keep this in mind. And by the way, if you do happen to get off the waitlist, don't expect a lot of financial aid because most of the institutional money will have been spent by them. And one last thing on waitlists before we close up here. Despite what many people think, there is almost never a ranked list of students on a waitlist. For instance, I'm number 1 on the waitlist versus 500 versus 1,300. So don't call or email the school asking what number you are on the waitlist. There will likely not be an answer. In fact, instead of thinking of it as a waitlist, I would think of it more as a wait pool. All of the students are floating around in this wait pool in no particular order. And when an opening comes up, the school normally chooses someone who will fit a particular institutional need. Does the band still need a tuba player? Is the math department short on math majors? You get the idea. So don't think that you are so highly qualified that you must be high on the wait list, and thus you're going to be one of the first people pulled off the wait list. That's probably not the case. It may be the case, but I wouldn't count on it. The best thing to do is to assume that you won't get in off the wait list, send a deposit to your next best choice, and assume that's where you're going. If you happen to be surprised by a phone call offering you a spot off the wait list at one of those schools, then make your decision. But I think what happens in most cases, students start to get invested in a school that actually wanted them from the get-go and often don't even change their minds late into the summer. I know this isn't the cheeriest of topics, but I wanted to make sure that you brace yourself for the coming weeks. This is an emotionally charged time. Tensions are high. Finances are in flux. Let's not lose sight of the big picture here. In fact, I'd like to revisit a pledge that I developed a few years ago that I challenge my PrepWellers to adopt in the days and weeks before admissions decisions come due. And I want them to repeat this to themselves out loud. I'm going to repeat it here, and if you're out there and you're a student, and if you haven't done this yet, please follow along. And here it goes. Dear self, as I await to hear back from colleges, I want to make something perfectly clear. The college I attend does not define me. It's simply a vehicle to help me discover who I am and what I want out of life. If I get rejected from my dream college, good. That just adds fuel to the fire. There are plenty of other great options out there. College will not determine my success in life. I will. In fact, I dare that overpriced dream school to reject me. I welcome it. For I will create my own destiny, no matter where I go or what I do. My future is in my hands. Period. Awaiting the good news, self. That's all I've got for you today, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the support. If you know a parent with an 8th grader, 9th grader, 10th grader, 11th grader, and a 12th grader in high school that might find this helpful, please share the episode with them. You can do that by finding that small box with a tiny arrow pointing up. That there is the share button. Click that button, text your friends a link to this episode, put a little note in there from you recommending that they give it a listen. If you have questions, comments, if you have an idea for an upcoming episode, please reach out to me by email. DM me on Instagram, PrepWell_Academy. Check out our blog, Facebook, connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you. Until next week, goodbye, good luck, and never stop preparing. This podcast is brought to you by PrepWell Academy. PrepWell Academy is my one-of-a-kind online mentoring program that delivers to your 9th or 10th grader a short, highly relevant video from me every week, every Sunday in fact, where I give them a heads up about what they should be thinking about to stay ahead of the game. To get these valuable lessons into your child's hands, please head over to PrepWellAcademy.com and enroll your child today.